Hello everybody, and welcome to another video on Reddit, specifically the r/PossibleHistory subreddit, the subreddit about my main channel. Now, as you might expect from an alternate history subreddit, most of the posts are indeed about alternate history, my videos and parodies of my thumbnails like this one, and specifically this time, the viewer poll I have going on an alternate division of Austria-Hungary in 1910. If you want to do that, by the way, there's a link in the description below. So with that, let's dive right into the first post of the day, which is this one about an altered North America where there is no manifest destiny. You will see a couple of interesting things. Obviously, the United States didn't expand as far west as they did historically. They basically stopped around the Louisiana Purchase area in the south, though in the north a massive native confederation, the Seven Council Fires, is intact. How this happens isn't really explained by the creator, but I imagine it has something to do with the backing of those natives by Britain. Or perhaps even America just giving up on the territory and deciding it to be native territory. Either way, in the rest of the map, we do see a couple states here in the west. The Navajo Nation, which is another native state, the Republic of Texas, the Republic of California, Republic of Lower California, and the Republic of Cascadia, which are all settler republics from Americans going west, not being incorporated into America proper, but still founding their own little republics in the area. As you can see, they've also pushed much deeper into Mexico, and in fact Mexico got so weak that in the south here, you can see that they even lost the Yucatan to the Maya. There's also, as always, the most holy kingdom of Deseret, which is a religious state of the Mormons around Utah. Now the main thing that stood out to me when looking at this map was the Republic of Cascadia. I think that would really be the only piece of this map that I don't think is really properly explainable as to why Canada doesn't own it. In our timeline, even with a major United States, Britain really wanted this territory, or at least part of this territory. So maybe there is some lore about America forcing Britain to abandon it or something along those lines. Or maybe the Republic of Cascadia is a close ally of Britain. Judging by the fact that the Kingdom of Canada and the Kingdom of Newfoundland are obviously British territories and the Republic of Cascadia isn't, makes me think that that might not be the case, but I don't know. Aside from that, it's a very interesting map. So moving on to the next post, we have what if Putin was woke? Now obviously, this specifically with Putin in power probably wouldn't have ever happened, but it does raise a really interesting point. What if Russia went democratic after the Cold War? It is a scenario I really want to make into the future because, like, imagine if you look at this world map where we have like America, its sphere of influence around Europe, a little bit around Asia as well. Imagine that to this big alliance we add Russia as well, which probably also means that states surrounding Russia also gravitate towards the Western world order. Most of the Northern Hemisphere would be democratic, Western, aligned to America, whatever. At this point, in the modern day, and this will probably change into the future with the rise of India and stuff, the only nation that could seriously resist Western pressure would be China, but aside from this would be an overwhelming alliance. Especially for Europe, this would perhaps be the best outcome if Russia integrated into the European Union, while they would be a very influential factor within said union. The free flow of gas and oil from Russia to Germany uninterrupted, same from Ukrainian gas and oil, into the Union would be great for both economies. All in all, probably a far better timeline, at least if you're a fan of the West. Moving on, we have the question of what does PossibleHistory use to make its maps? Now, I've already shown you, and I get this question a lot, so I thought might as well answer it here. And the answer is paint.net. It is a completely free program to download. Just literally type paint.net into Google, you'll find it. It's completely free, it's very user-friendly, especially for beginners. You've already seen me use it a bit, but to demonstrate, look at the ease at which I can change the map at will. Like, I want to change the German border, and obviously in most of my videos I try to define my borders a little bit more by like cultures, rivers, mountains, etc. And now I'm just kind of doing something. It really doesn't take that long to extend a border of a nation, to change borders, to change colors. Once you know what you're doing, which you will pretty quickly, it's relatively easy to do. Now, I also like to do when a war breaks out, where I only color the nations at war and leave the rest neutral. You might think that that takes a lot of effort, but actually I just do this, select the nations I want to color in. I can color in all the nations I didn't select, which immediately become neutral. Then I just select red and blue, and there we go. We have a map of nations at war. If I want to show occupations, I just select another color of red with a slightly lighter shade. I draw a line on the map, and again, I do try to think about this a little bit more in my videos. And there we have it. We have Germany invading France on a map. All this relatively easy, very learnable. Just look up one tutorial online and you can at least get the basics done. Of course, you can get better over time, but the basics are amazing. Besides that, I also have basically all of my maps available for free in the link in the description of all of my videos. You'll get access to this drive, which has pretty much all of the maps I've created so far. There we go. Now you can actually see them, which includes all of my maps of Europe, which are the ones I use most of the time. I have North America, the world, Africa, the ancient world, which is a relatively new series I'm doing, but I'm pretty proud of how these maps are turning out. If you're interested in these maps, get paint.net, learn how to use it basically. And if you want to create other posts on any alternate history site, feel free to use my maps and edit them a bit. I specifically made them in such a way that they're easy to edit for anyone, so that you too can create your alternate history maps. With that, let's move on to a short history discussion about could Napoleon have invaded Britain? It was a poll on the subreddit, which the overwhelming majority of people voted no. I tend to agree with this assessment, but with a major but. A lot of people tend to say if only France won at Trafalgar, they could have actually gotten naval supremacy. That is easier said than done. For one, it's probably not true, because Britain had a lot of other ships in reserve. It's not like they put everything they had at Trafalgar. But more importantly, allowing France to win that battle requires a lot of changes. Like after the revolution, all of France's admirals were nobles. So, of course, they were all pretty much killed, exiled, fled, stripped from office, whatever you may. But the people that were in charge of the French fleets at this time were all in all pretty bad. So, during the specific Battle of Trafalgar, France was really going into it in a very bad position, essentially. Now, while I do think that in terms of pure ships, France would have been able to catch up to Britain eventually, the issue there is experience, basically. The British had total dominance over the sea, which means their sailors were sailing, their admirals were commanding, and what was the French Navy doing? It was growing, but it was stuck in a port. How are you going to get new, brilliant admirals? How are you going to get experienced sailors when you can't leave port without getting blown up by Britain? And that is really the fundamental issue with somehow getting Napoleon to invade Britain. Winning a couple of major engagements is relatively easy, but actually defeating Britain, getting an invasion force ready, and not getting wrecked by the far superior British Navy, even if the French have more numbers, is going to be difficult. So, my answer to this question is no, unless France gets far better leadership from the start, really pushes a lot into creating a major navy to beat Britain with, or Britain just royally messes up something. With that, I want to move on to the final section of today's video, which is the section about the current viewer poll. I already mentioned it at the start, but there is currently a viewer vote going on. If you want to participate, go down to the description, vote. I'm closing the votes, depending on when this comes out, I think next week. So there is definitely still time to vote now. And the first post we're going to be looking at is, what will be your goal in the current Austro-Hungarian collapse poll? Where by far most people obviously said creating chaos was their primary goal. A couple said spreading communism. A couple tried to keep the old order around as much as possible, which you can do. Technically, there are the options to just keep everyone Habsburg and create like a Danubian Federation type thing. But I don't think that was really I don't think that was a really popular option anywhere. And the second most chosen option is try to make peace last. But obviously, creating chaos, creating an interesting timeline is the most interesting option. It's the one I chose as well. The way I did my votes was I tried to make Germany slightly stronger, Italy a lot stronger, Russia a lot stronger, with the idea of, okay, Britain would now no longer support Russia, which could maybe get us like a Germany and Italy against France and Russia World War I, something like that. That was basically my plan, which definitely falls into the creating chaos camp. So let's look at a couple of maps that people sent in, with first this one, which is really interesting and really detailed. Instead of just focusing on Austria-Hungary, they basically wrote an entire alternate history about it. Basically, their concept was the collapse of Austria-Hungary causes like a very short World War I, where everyone gains something and everyone has to give in something. Or at least most nations do. So as you can see, France has managed to expand a bit into Belgium. They've also puppeted the small remains of Flanders, which also expanded into the Netherlands. The Germans actually participated in partitioning the Netherlands, and they also annexed Luxembourg in the west. But at the same time, Germany seemingly lost to Britain at some point, because a lot of their coastal cities, which are very small in yellow here, have been stripped away into a new Hanseatic Free State. Basically, what this does is it restricts the German Navy, which can no longer seriously contest Britain. Interestingly, the Danish Empire seems to have come back. It controls Friesland, formerly Dutch. It has annexed a bit of Sweden, and it has reunited with Norway to form a new major Danish state. Sweden itself then expanded east into Finland and Karelia, weakening the Russians, who have also lost territory to the Germans. And in response to these defeats, Russia reformed from Russia into a broader Slavic empire. So rather than focusing on the Russians as the primary group, the empire grew more tolerant for all forms of Slavs. Through this, they also united with Czechoslovakia as well as with the Polish-speaking territories of Austria-Hungary. Speaking of Austria-Hungary, it is pretty much gone. Germany has integrated with Austria, while Italy used the opportunity to grab the entire coastline of the Balkan. The lore also speaks of a war against the Ottomans by the Balkan nations as well as Italy, which allowed Italy to get all of Greece. They even get Constantinople, which is difficult to see on this map, but is true. While Bulgaria and Serbia unified to create Yugoslavia. So Italy has basically become the quiet hegemon of the Mediterranean, especially because Britain at some point got defeated by the Ottomans, who have annexed Egypt and their Arabian territories. And then the Ottomans went east at the moment of Russia's weakness against Germany, and they united with the Turkic and Central Asian territories of Russia, now reaching the Chinese border. So while they lost out greatly to Italy, they've gained a lot in Egypt. They even have Somalia actually, as well as Central Asia. So all in all, is it a realistic timeline? Probably not, but it is very interesting. Then we're moving on to the next one, which is another take on the division of Austria-Hungary, and this one specifically kept everyone independent. Though it is slightly difficult to see with the border between Bosnia and Serbia, no foreign power actually got anything in this map, which is really interesting. And in fact, all of these states are communist. So rather than the empire splitting apart, they imagined communist revolutions take over all the individual republics, but they then remain together to form like a Danubian federation of a kind. Now, interestingly, as you look at these borders, they try to create some balance. So you have like Austria, you still have a pretty beefy Hungary, Czechoslovakia is pretty big, but the only state that really gets screwed over here is Ukraine. They're caught between Hungary, Romania, Transylvania, Czechoslovakia, and Poland, and they don't actually control like the biggest piece of Ukrainian territory on this map. The reason for this, as they explained, was to prevent Russia from using Ukraine against Federation, essentially. Like if you give Russia a border, then they may at some point be like, hey, we already control most of Ukraine, might as well control the rest, which would cause instability. So, all in all, a very interesting take on the poll. Then the final one I want to cover is a more simple one, which is another map on how they voted for the Austria-Hungary poll. And as we zoom in, mostly Germany expanded a lot. Austria, Czechoslovakia, as well as Slovenia, sorry, I got them confused the previous episode, are all now led by German monarchs. Hungary, it seems, has turned into a Russian ally, which could be really interesting. While I believe both Poland and Croatia are now communist, which might add some interesting tension, though I must say, I don't see much preventing Serbia and or Italy to carve up Croatia at some point. Though maybe that exact rivalry is why they did it. Now, Hungary as a Russian ally here is quite interesting, and depending on how good their army is, could be really devastating for Germany. But alternatively, I've noticed Hungary and Russia don't actually share a border. So unless that is fixed, and maybe if this really is a communist Poland, an invasion of Poland could help there, I don't see how Russia could really supply or support the Hungarians, which could easily turn them into an easy first enemy for Germany to defeat. Especially because the way this map stands, I imagine Romania will be a pretty strong German ally, because while they got a bit of Transylvania, they didn't get everything, and it is now Russia which is keeping them from uniting with the rest of Transylvania. Oh, and there has been a new post exactly 27 minutes ago while I was recording this, and that is that History 2.0 has finally begun. And that is true. At the time of recording, I just released the first episode of History 2.0. So if you're interested in that series, go check it out. For now, this is the end of the video. If you enjoyed, click on one of the 2 videos on screen now. And always, try to like, comment and subscribe to help the channel go forward. Again, thank you all for watching and goodbye.